In today's video, we're going to talk about landlords. This is a number 4 video in our series. And specifically on landlords, we're going to talk about the yield between a couple different properties that a landlord puts in his pocket after expenses compared to the yield our mortgage would give the landlord after expenses. We start off with talking about being a landlord. Very often we run into a lot of our borrowers who own a variety of properties, not just one, but they might own as many as 25 or 30 houses. And being a landlord, generally speaking, is a younger man's game. Once a landlord reaches a certain age, it becomes more burdensome. Hence the reason why the line at the top is, are you tired of being a landlord? Some of the things that landlords have to deal with on an everyday basis are constant phone calls from the tenants you have, or trying to fill a rental unit you need to fill. Tenant complaints, whether it's a complaint against the neighbor, or the water heater doesn't work quite right, or the air conditioner's not getting cold enough. If you're a landlord, you know what I'm talking about. Then there's excuses come rent time. I don't have the money today, can you come back tomorrow or the next day? A lot of tenants don't have any respect for your property. We could all tell those stories. In some cases, management companies are an added expense. Evicting tenants, especially during this period of COVID-19. You can't evict your tenants. Some tenants will take advantage of that. Getting things fixed, battling with contractors, or even trying to find contractors to do your work for you. Bottom line, I know a lot of landlords that have been very successful putting together a large portfolio of properties, but they find that it's almost impossible to get away. If you want to go, after working years and years and years putting together this portfolio, you want to get away for a week or 10 days on a vacation, a proper vacation, they can't do it because there's just too many hands-on things they need to put up with. So a lot of landlords, not all, but a lot of landlords feel that they work in this environment and they put up with some of these headaches because they think there's no better place to get the same return on their money. Well, I'm standing here today to tell you that there is. We're going to go through a little exercise where we're going to compare the return on 2 different investments. The first one is a triplex. Let's say this fictitious borrower buys a triplex. It's here in Central Florida. $205,000 is his total investment, which breaks down to $199,000 for purchase and $6,000 in his closing costs to buy it. The other alternative, the one we're going to compare that one against, is another landlord sells a couple of his properties and he has $205,000 in cash and he buys one of our mortgages, in this case for $205,000. Okay? So we're going to compare those two. But before we do that, a couple of assumptions we're going to make here. We're going to give a landlord the benefit of the doubt that his tenant pays him on time every month. The scenario in the market, which we are currently in the middle of, is prices for rental properties are on the higher end, historically speaking. And we don't expect appreciation to be as strong as it was a couple of years ago. The closer you get to the top, the less chance there is for more appreciation. So we're going to say appreciation of this rental property that he bought is negligible. We will assume again that repairs are done by the landlord. These are everyday repairs. But larger items, roofs, AC, are done by a contractor. Last thing, this particular landlord does not have a management company. He collects his own rent, and if need be, he does the repairs or he has somebody do the repairs for him. Landlord has a rental triplex purchase. He has 3 rents. They're all 1 bedroom, 1 baths. He paid cash. On the other side, we have one of Mortgage Investors Network's note. That's $205,000. Payments are based on a 20-year term. It's got a 10-year balloon, meaning you make payments and on the 120th month, you either refinance with us or you have to go get a new mortgage, if you still have the mortgage, to refinance it. Okay? And this particular mortgage has a yield to the person who bought the mortgage of 9.2%. Okay? So this is where we're going to start. Okay? Now, initial investment is the same, $205,000 for both. The monthly revenue to the landlord is $2,200 a month. And the monthly revenue to the person who bought the note is $1,571.67. From that monthly revenue that the landlord gets, which is actually gross monthly revenue, we have to subtract costs. And I've used 5 different factors here. First one is vacancy. I use a 5% vacancy in this case, $125 a month. Real estate taxes, I figure on a $200,000 property, real estate taxes, of course, without a homestead exemption, are going to be about $2,400 a year. Property insurance, again, about $2,400 a year. Repairs, these are just normal repairs, would be an average of about $160 a month. Capital expenses need some explaining. Capital expenses would be expenses that accumulate over a longer period of time, say 12 to 15 years. And at that point, you've replaced the roof. You've painted the outside of the building. On a triplex, you might have replaced all 3 of the AC units. You've replaced appliances, all the major items in the house have been replaced. And fair to say, those are typical expenses. Now, very often a landlord is not going to acknowledge that, but nonetheless, it's there. Okay? So, when you take the gross monthly revenue of the landlord at $2,200 and you subtract these expenses as I've listed them, you come up with a net monthly income of approximately $1,283 a month, or $15,396 per year. Now, obviously, if that is your yearly income and you divide it by your investment of $205,000, you've got a yield on your money of 7.51%, which is not bad, but let's compare it to your note. You collect $1,571.67 a month and basically have no expenses. So come right down to monthly income is $1,571.67. Again, take it times 12 to get your yearly return. Divide that by your initial investment. Your yield is 9.2. Now, stopping there for a second, bear in mind, when you're collecting a check every month, you're not a landlord. So you're not fixing pipes. You're not taking all those phone calls. You've got some information you need to send to your accountant at the end of the year to claim how much interest you've gotten. The landlord has got, I don't need to tell landlords. They know what's involved. But there's a lot involved in being a landlord. Okay? So that is not a numerical factor here. But nonetheless, that's a quality of life factor, which any landlord will tell you is important. And this is where I came up with those capital expenses, which you can review at any time. So we'll go to the second scenario. And this scenario is just like the first. The numbers are a little different because it's a duplex now. So it's a smaller place, less money. $168,000 duplex, $168,000 note. The notes are the same terms. The landlord is collecting $900 per side, which is reasonable assumption. Okay? The costs, again, are broken down the same way. The landlord has 90 for vacancy, 180 for taxes, 175 for property insurance, 150 for repairs per month, and $190.97 in these capitalized expenses. Again, monthly income $1,014.03, annualized $12,168.36, yield on his money 7.24. Our side, Mortgage Investors Network, on the note you've purchased, the income from the previous screen was $1,288. The expenses are zero. The monthly income is the same. Yearly income is $15,456. Again, yield 9.2. You can see on a number-to-number basis, you're doing much less work and your return is better. Last case, single-family house. I'm not going to go through all the numbers again. We've already done on the other two. Suffice it to say that, and most landlords will agree, the more rental units you have in a building, the better your return should be. So your lowest return would be in a single-family rental. In this case, and I think we've been generous here, $120,000 house is $1,250 in monthly revenue. Taking that, lessing your expenses, gives you net in your pocket per month as a landlord of $688.34. Annualizing, figuring return, 5.5%, which makes sense because it's a building with less rents per square foot. So the return should be lower, and that is displayed here. And here we are with the old note. Same numbers as the others, never changes. The return, 9.2%. The difference is drastic, and over a period of time, you're going to really feel the difference. And again, you don't have to be a landlord. Okay? So there's your capitalized expenses. How do we conclude this discussion? We're not advocating that a landlord should sell all his properties and do nothing but buy mortgages. But in the atmosphere we find ourselves in here in August of 2020, values are way up historically. So what we suggest is, why not sell some of the properties in your portfolio? Get the benefit of those high prices. Take some of your money, invest it into mortgages, and relieve yourself of some of those phone calls and repairs and all the daily duties that a landlord has to put up with. Instead, buy our notes and get an even better return anyway. I mean, it seems fairly obvious that this is a viable alternative to being a landlord with a lot of properties. You can make the same money in these scenarios with being a much less busy landlord, meaning quality of life should go up with the extra time you have, and your return goes up. So we think this is a real viable alternative to your current modus operandi, and it should be given serious consideration. And again, it says it all. We feel our mortgage notes are a good alternative to the monthly grind of being a landlord. After all, who would you rather be? The landlord?
I hate this job. Gotta be another way to make a living.
Or the investor?
Thank you, Mortgage Investors Network.
Thank you, Mortgage Investors Network. Thank you, Mortgage Investors Network.
Thank you, Mortgage Investors Network.
Great doing business with ya.
The choice is yours. Thank you for watching.